Yes, it is Hot 97. So tonight, super exciting. I was talking about this earlier, but tonight there's a rock doc on VH1 that starts airing tonight. Four-part special of Tanning of America, and I have my guy Steve Stoute in the building today. Hey. Of course, the author of best-selling book Tanning of America, Industry G. OG.
Yeah.
Do you feel like an OG? You have to at this point, right?
Yeah, well, you know, when you have a 4 in front of your number.
That 4 changes the game, right?
You got to be like, yeah, well, I am an OG.
Well, the OGs are important because they give the perspective. They tell the story. You need people who were there to tell the story of how we even got to this point.
Yes, you do. And that's really why I wrote it. That's why I wrote the book initially. I feel like we all played a very important part. This station, the people involved in hip-hop, when you start talking about, you know, from the mid-'80s till now, that has played a very important part in spreading the culture of hip-hop. Mm-hmm. Whether you like certain songs or not is not even the point. It's the culture that came of the music that spread and created a global culture in which people connected and understood each other by. And hip-hop is like a code that did that. And I feel 100% that hip-hop did more to bring people together than anything since Dr. Martin Luther King. I've always felt that. I said that in the book. I say it any chance I get.
You are one of the people. Now you're not the only one. A lot of people would say that. Of course, it put Obama in the White House.
Well, I mean, there's a chapter, 1520 Sedgwick Avenue to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, because I believe that hip hop's birthplace is a direct result to the presidency of the United States, and I connect those dots throughout the book. The documentary goes a little bit wider than just talking about the President Obama and. You know, the vote, the getting youth out to vote and put a president in office. The craziest thing when you go through the documentary, and it happens in episode 4, is Puffy, 9 years ago, interviews a young senator, man, and tells him, I believe that one day you could be president, and when you run, you call me, man. You're inspiring. And that was young Barack Obama, and you see him looking at Puff like, this is Puff Daddy. We have that. We show Amazing. That. It's outrageous.
Yeah.
You know, and you know Puff was doing the Vote or Die and Rock the Vote. He's been doing all that. And you think about it, when you compile all of the, you know what it is when you compound it all, sometimes you forget all of the things at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Yeah, and I didn't want that to go down, Angie. And we look back on this, and we're just the generation that was like blinged out and champagned out.
No, you wanted credit for that.
I want this generation. Yeah. And all I did was write the book really for all of us, so that there's a document that sits there that you could always go back to and refer to that was like, no, this happened because of this. And that was the most important part of this.
You know, for me watching it, I always have a thing like, I like people who are confident, who like to think big and think beyond, but sometimes arrogance offends me, right?
Yeah.
But watching this and looking at some of the boundaries that people, or the doors that people knock down, it took a bunch of arrogance to get there.
It took
unapologetic
arrogance.
It really did.
Starting clothing lines when you can't even sew.
Yeah, it really did. I was
People
watching
are doing everything.
One of the parts they're talking about Will Smith and how Will Smith, he was a rapper and he was managed by Benny Medina, and Benny Medina had the idea of, I want to put him in a movie and I don't want him to be like wearing gold chains and being in that type of movie. I want him to do a Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
And the audacity to think that in the moment. I mean, now it seems like, yes, of course, that makes sense. But at that time, it's arrogant. It's like ballsy.
I'm gonna switch subjects, but it makes sense. It's analogous. People make comments about Kanye West, and
I was gonna ask you what your thoughts are on that.
And his thing, and the rants, and the clothing business, and fashion won't let him in, and all this other stuff, and then they think there's arrogance in that. You know, how would I ever think that a guy from Chicago, who's a producer, who's selling beats third party to other people, all of a sudden becomes one of the biggest rappers in the world. And he would, from Chicago, and his jaw is wired. I mean, if you went through that experience, you would believe you could do anything too. So of course I support. He's a dreamer, and his dreams got him to this point. And I don't think that he should stop dreaming because people are like upset and feel like, well, he's going too far to get into couture fashion. He's not going to do that. Who is? You know, people thought I was crazy to get into the advertising business. Right. You leave the president of Interscope to go start an advertising business? What are you, crazy? It's the audacity to do that. You don't even have a college degree. How are you going to go tell McDonald's without a college degree what's right and what's wrong? How are you going to put that information together when you have to go up against the guys from McKinsey and Baines and these big consultant firms that are filled with brainiacs? Because hip-hop gave me the audacity to believe that I can get it done and the work ethic to get it done. That's a very important thing. That's part of the culture that
really
keeps driving.
really
All these guys are in businesses and inspiring people to go in businesses, and they're gonna make it happen. And it's make it happen. Andre Harrell used to always say, "Make it happen." I've heard Puff say, "Make it happen," and it was just like, figure it out, man. Be resourceful and figure it out.
One of the things too, because a lot of what Tanning of America is points out to is the value in the hip hop culture, the value in our artists in terms of like making money, marketing them, being able to make money for brands, for companies, which is how you've made an amazing living for yourself. But so I was looking at the original ways, and I was watching Dre and Snoop talk about how they put Tanqueray in gin and juice videos, and all of a sudden Tanqueray's $1 started, right?
Yeah.
But don't you feel like back then it was kind of more organic, where now it's like product placement is so obvious?
Well, I take some of the blame for that.
You do, right? You probably should.
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged. It was organic. I think LL Cool J wearing Kango hats was organic.
Yeah.
And Run DMC wearing Adidas and everything else was. And whether it be gin and juice and Tanqueray or Pasta Cavassier or whatever it was, brands had gotten a lot of benefit from, the fact that these artists was using brands to profess who they were, and it was their stature. And, the bigger the brand, the more respect you had. And those kind of things led to growth for these companies, but yet they never wanted to associate themselves with hip hop because they felt like it was beneath them. And all those same brands ended up hoping and praying that gravy train continued. Then all of a sudden you see Puff start his own alcohol company and then start their own clothing companies. And, it's become less and less that kind of free promotion deal. Now you got to do deals with people in order for them to do that generally. And I think that, hip hop gave a lot of money away and created a lot of brands. And a lot of people got a lot of rich off of it without the artists themselves who were promoting these companies benefiting from that. But,
is it as effective now, though, that it's not as organic? Is it as effective? I mean, for some people it is. For the big, for the J, the Puff.
If it's honest. I think if it's honest, it works. I think that, Puff would have a hard time selling sneakers, but he could definitely sell Ciroc. Like, he is that guy. Like, when you see that Frank Sinatra ad, you believe it. You've seen him do that. He does that.
Yeah.
He's the man with the white party and everybody shows up.
Yeah.
So I still think that there are ways you can sell product if your relationship with that category is authentic and people believe that you're selling something that you believe in. I think that always works.
Have you ever made a mistake? Have you ever put somebody with a product that it was just like, that was a terrible idea? Because we see that all the time. People start.
No, I don't. I've seen that a lot, and I could say that I have not done that. I've not done that.
Really?
No, I've not put. But first of all, I'm not. That's not the core business. Is putting rappers with. Musicians rather with brands. That's not my core business. I do communications, and if that's an idea that comes out of it, then that's what we do. But I had not made any, mistakes that were made was more like, I put T.I. with GM to sell the Chevy Impala, which made perfect sense, and he had the song Top Back at the time, and then he gets locked up for guns. I had to deal with that.
What happens? You get the call?
Or I do a deal with Wrigley and Chris Brown make the song Forever, which is the Wrigley jingle. It's blowing up. It's crazy. I'm like feeling like a genius, and then all of a sudden I wake up the morning of the Grammys and he's in jail.
Had the Wrigley's
on
commercial
the run.
even run?
The Wrigley's commercial had just started to run, and it was just revealed
how much money did
that
spend?
Forever really was the Wrigley jingle turned into a song.
How much money was lost, do you think, in that? A lot.
I can't quantify the money. There was a big opportunity loss. For everybody.
Yeah. Wow. Those were the worst too?
Yeah, those were the worst too. I had one long when Justin Timberlake had the malfunction with Janet. I was under a McDonald's deal with Justin. That was also something I had to deal with. And in the beginning, I used to do it. And I would look at the thing and I'd be like, man, T.I. got locked up for guns. And I'd be like, what is he doing? And then I'm like, wait a minute. I got to get in front of this. I got to put this guy with General Motors. I'm responsible for this. you know, and I realized quickly that I can't just watch it. I have to actually drive the outcome.
What was the best one you've done? The best one.
I think the best stuff. I think the Jay-Z HP ad when they only showed half the body was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think
that was creatively mean.
That was just retarded at the time, like during the NBA Finals. I think even when we launched all those sneakers, like Allen Iverson and Jadakiss in the commercials back then, and like the S Carters and then the G Units, I think like just selling sneakers was just really smart at the time because Air Force One was so dominant. And it was just a way to cut in. That was really cool. I don't know.
That's got to be amazing.
Yeah,
that's
like
got to be
looking
so
back
dope
on some of that stuff.
Even to watch this doc, right? So it's 4 series. Wait, so the doc airs tonight is the first part, right?
Yeah, tonight.
It's 4 parts.
It's tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Are you gonna cry when you watch it?
No, I'm not gonna cry. 42 interviews with, you know.
But I mean, you gotta feel like you had such a hand. That's gotta feel that.
It does feel good.
Yeah.
It feels good. I can't get caught up in that right now, but I know when I look at everything in hindsight, you know, I'm gonna feel proud about my contribution to this business and to the culture that we all, you know, have been a part of developing and professing. So, you know, it's cool. And the truth of the matter is, you know, we all have played a role in contributing to that. No one's ever gonna say, you know, what did Hot 97 do? I remember Hot 97 would play dance music. I remember it like it was yesterday. They would play dance music. And it was Flex playing, you know, coming in playing hip-hop a little bit, and Steve Smith was here, and they changed the format.
Crazy.
But when that happened, there was no way for hip-hop music couldn't even get played in New York the right way. It was getting played at 2 in the morning and
weekends.
You know, and weekends, and it wasn't getting played. And then you guys blew it open. And when you guys started playing it with the bandwidth of Hot 97, all of a sudden you have kids in Greenwich, Connecticut getting caught up on the flavor. But you know what that did? That caused the conversation. That was the introduction of this new art form. So between Hot 97 and Yo MTV Raps, you got these kids now understanding, you know what? I actually can relate to these guys who are these hip-hop artists and kind of what they're talking about. It makes sense to me. I like this. And that's how you change the world. But that would never, ever, ever get quantified correctly unless something like this came out and provided that platform for that dialogue.
I don't feel like everybody creates that platform for radio. I feel like radio is like the lost little piece of the puzzle that never gets the credit.
I give credit. Let me tell you something.
Shout to all the radio people across the country, all the world. I feel like we are like the little engine that never really properly gets.
Radio was the key for why I even started an advertising agency.
Really?
Yes, because what happened was
because the ads sucked and you were like, oh.
What happened is radio is the closest with dealing with the movement in advertising spend because you guys have local like car dealers and you know you take radio right it has to affect it locally. So for instance, when you seen Z100 and they would never play rap music, all of a sudden their sponsors started going, wait, this kid wants to hear Nelly. They had to play it because the advertisers were feeling the fact that their advertising wasn't getting the right people in their offices or in their dealerships or whatever it was. So I always felt like a radio was so close on the front line of media. And radio had to play, you had to all of a sudden play a different assortment of music in order to get the massive, the maximum of audience that the market had. However, when you go to television, they have black, white. They put them in demographics that you had to buy it. Like if you want to buy black, you buy BET. If you want to buy white, radio didn't have that. And I felt like everything was going to turn into radio. That advertising had to respond.
Has it yet?
It's getting there. It had to turn into the way radio treats playing their playlists. What we have to play was hot. I felt like advertising had to do the exact same thing. They had to just play the hits. And as a result, you're starting to see format changes. You've seen format changes at radio, that churban and all these terms that make no sense. But it was a way to captivate advertisers, and that's why I feel radio is important.
When Kanye was up here, you know, he clearly had an agenda. His agenda was to break down some of these walls, I guess, in that world. Do you feel like they're there? Do you feel like do you feel like, I don't know. Do you feel like it's possible what he's talking about? And
yeah,
you do.
Yeah, I think that his approach has to be, you know, he spent a lot of money and he's put a lot of time and effort in.
Yeah.
And he's breaking down walls for either himself or somebody else is going to be a part of it. But if you look at what, like, Pharrell's been doing it for years. I mean, Pharrell tells me a story that he's on the front row of Marc Jacobs' fashion show. And he has on the bathing ape glasses. And Marc Jacobs sees him after the show and says, "Where'd you get those glasses?" He's like, "Well, I designed them for Bathing Ape." He goes, "What inspired you?" He goes, "Well, there was some glasses that Versace had, that Biggie had. And then there was a scene in Scarface where Tony Montana was walking by the poolside. And I took those two ideas and I made these glasses." So then he said, "Well, could you make glasses for Louis Vuitton?" That was the first time Louis Vuitton ever made eyewear. It's Pharrell designed it. So of course those walls could be broken.
I love that story. There's so many great stories like that, by the way, in the documentary.
Yeah.
There's one that they talk about Tommy Hilfiger, how he lived in the city. And I mean, he lived in Connecticut and worked in the city and would purposely drive the long way up Park Avenue all the way to Connecticut so that he could drive through Harlem every day.
Yeah.
So he could see what everybody was wearing.
And he would use that to make fashion, for his fashion cues. And then Bloomingdale's told him that he's bringing the wrong audience inside the store and they were going to kick him out. How about that? How about Tommy Hilfiger was told that he was going to get thrown out of Bloomingdale's?
Didn't he get quoted as saying something that was like a...
And then, yeah, something that he didn't like black people or something. It was cleaned up later. But the fact of the matter was, he got inspiration from driving up to Harlem and just watching fashion that was coming from hip-hop sensibilities. And he built $1 billion business as a result of it. Multi-billion-dollar business as a result of it.
Amazing.
And he talks about it. He says his business broke wide open when one day when Snoop Dogg Snoop Lion now wore Tommy Hilfiger on Saturday Night Live. It changed his life. He says this openly. I don't know if he's sending Snoop a check.
Isn't it amazing with all that information out there? When you watch it, it's amazing that all of this information, all these facts, and that people could still kind of front on the culture in places. There's still people.
Isn't that crazy?
It's really kind of crazy.
How can you? Like what else is what does it have to do?
Yeah, no, it's really kind of crazy.
It's ridiculously unfair for anybody to even blink on the power that this culture has and the effect it has on shifting the world.
What's the future of the culture?
Well, the unfortunate thing is when things get big, it gets homogenized.
Yes.
And when it gets homogenized, you get a lot of riffraff and
fast food?
things that,
You get a lot of fast food?
A lot of fast food, a lot of 2% milk of the culture itself. And, you know, over time, there's a new culture that emerges. But, you know, this one clearly made a contribution to society that was much bigger than introducing gold chains, gold teeth, and baggy pants.
Do you feel like the biggest part of it is past us, or do you feel like there's still room for growth?
Well, there's always, I mean, with Puffy, with Revolt right now, what does that mean? Could that be Viacom one day? You know? And then what does that mean after that? I used to think, I had this analogy, like, you know, I don't know how many people, I'm showing my age, but like Pac-Man was mainstream. And like, yeah, like, you know, you didn't realize Pac-Man wasn't really mainstream till you realize what mainstream looked like with Call of Duty. Like, that's mainstream,
right.
You know? So you always think it's over and then you see the real version of it later down the line, you know, 20 years later. So when guys like Jay-Z gets, you know, the power to control media, or Puff gets the power to control media, that's when you start to realize the length and the depths that it can go when those guys are making decisions to help change the landscape of communications. So I think there's a much longer way to go because we still haven't gotten to the top where we can make all those decisions right now.
I just feel like I don't know. I feel like maybe even watching that and seeing how much was out there. I mean, from the Will Smiths to the Puffs to the Jays I feel like now of the new batch, I don't see as much growth happening. We still have the J, and you still have Puff is growing, and you've got Ciroc, and Dr. Dre has Beats.
Yeah.
I don't see the next layer of that evolving.
You're gonna see. I think you're gonna see. You know, I'm waiting to see somebody that comes out the hip hop community create a great, gigantic technology platform. I don't know why. You know, we couldn't develop Twitter or Instagram you know, or WhatsApp, whatever it is. And I think that's going to come next. So it may not be somebody directly that came out the music business, but it could have been somebody who the music business, hip hop culture inspired, and therefore they understand the rules and the code, and they put people on who, you know, are down with that understanding, you know? And I think that's a big part of it as well. So it's not only guys directly from the music, but people who grew up that the culture influenced being able to make decisions and developing things that we could all partake in.
I love that. I'm going to try to find that person today.
You're going to find that person today?
Today.
Yeah, well, I don't know who to call, but whoever that is, and tell me I can invest in that stock.
All right. So if you listen, the book has been out and it was a bestseller, but if you can still get it.
You can still buy the book. In fact, the book we have next week.
The Tanning of America.
Next week, the book comes out, an ebook, in 2 weeks.
It was never an ebook?
It was never an ebook, and Kerry Washington read the book. So we have Olivia
that.
Pope reading The Tanning of America, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
And then tonight starts on VH1 at, I didn't have the time.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Why'd they put you so late at night? See how they treat us?
No.
I'm just kidding.
You know, they're putting on, well, they got to deal with every desperate housewife situation first.
Yes.
So I had to stay clear of that action.
But I totally understand that.
On Wednesday, I'm on at 9 o'clock. But
that's good.
Yeah, we move around because of the action.
They're gonna get a lot of. They'll get a lot of burn too. I think, and they'll live forever. Those pieces will live forever.
Oh, those
really
things,
great. Even if you're not interested in financially benefiting from the culture of hip hop, it will take you back through like a journey. It's really a great doc.
The journey, the contribution, connect the dots on things that you didn't even realize that you were personally a part of making happen in America and around the world, and I think that people are going to be surprised when they watch it. And it's not just like this super educational thing. It's funny, you know. So, you know, I made a point to make it entertaining as well as educational, so that you feel like, you know, you're learning something and connecting dots, but you also don't get bored because you're watching it and it's funny.
Right.
That kind of thing.
The Tanning of America. Is that what the doc is called? Tanning of America.
The Tanning of America.
Tanning
One Nation Under Hip Hop. VH1. The 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, always a good time. One time, Steve Stoute. We're outside 97.
All right.